And welcome back to me channel. Unless you're new here, and then it's just welcome. My name is Rusty, and this is me channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And all of a sudden I feel like talking like Adrian Barbeau in The Fog. Hi all you people. Welcome to my show. How are you feeling on this lovely night? Yes. Okay. We're going to get into day 4 of Slasher Fest. And it's called The Final Terror. Now this is the least slasher of my slashers in this particular Slasher Fest, as there will be many more. It's still a slasher though. I really love this movie. I love everything about it. This is The Final Terror. It does have a double-sided... Who did this? Scream Factory? It does have a double-sided thing, but it's not a cover. It's just photos from the movie, which is cool. Now, I told you, I think in the first one, that there was another one in this set of 7 that was delayed and released long after it was filmed. Now, The Final Terror was filmed in 1981, but it was not released, so it's officially a 1983 slasher film. The reason that it was kept on the shelf for 2 years was because no distributor would distribute it because it was just a bunch of unknowns that no one heard of. So they were like, oh, there's no big names, there's nothing to play on. At first their problem was that the body count was not high enough. It didn't follow a couple of the usual slasher tropes. So they didn't really know how to market it. So the first thing that the production company did was they added a couple more kills to the movie to try to please them. They added an intro and grossed it up a little bit. That didn't work either. And now it was like, oh well, it was also because it's a bunch of unknowns and therefore nobody would distribute it. However, in 1983, they were like, several of these people became extremely big. And they were like, oh wait, we'll take it now. And that's because The Final Terror was released in 1983 and it was directed by Andrew Davis and it was written by Jon George and Neil D. Hicks, and it stars Daryl Hannah and Rachel Ward and Adrian Zmed. So these were people that and Lewis Smith as well. Now, Daryl Hannah just came out as Priss with Blade Runner. And Rachel Ward had just become a worldwide sensation with the Thornbirds. And the guy that plays Boone, Smith, he had just landed that huge role as, not Billy, what was his name? But anyway, it was one of the brothers of Patrick Swayze in North and South, the miniseries. So now all of a sudden, The Final Terror was full of stars. When just 2 years ago, the distributors refused to touch it because there was nobody was known. Another actor, the guy who plays Mike, he is the dad in the Twisted Sister videos. The real famous Twisted Sister videos. I don't have a Twisted Sister album. I like heavy metal, but I liked a couple of their songs, but not enough to buy one of their albums. Twisted Sister was just not my thing. But those videos, with the dad in it. That's the guy who plays Mike in this one, Adrian Zmed. He had gotten on that dance fever. He had gotten into a couple of big starring roles. Rachel Ward, like I said, she starred in The Thornbirds, which was like a worldwide miniseries hit. The only person that really had too much in it was the guy who played Nathaniel. He was in the Jeffersons, the comedy show The Jeffersons. He was that friend of Lionel's from school. George let him work downstairs in the dry cleaners. Him. You would recognize him when you see him. So yeah, all of these people had become stars in just 2 years, and all of a sudden the Final Terror was full of stars. So that doesn't change the fact that it's a fantastic movie to begin with, and the distributors just wouldn't touch it because it was a bunch of unknowns. That's stupid. That would not happen today, by the way. I mean, every idiot with a camera, with a fucking phone cam, has made a damn movie out there. You know it. So today, The Final Terror would have been released instantly and would have been a hit because it's a great movie. It's a really great movie. So the film opens with a biker and his biker chick riding down a country road when they are tripped by a wire and the bike is wrecked. He's hurt his leg. She gets up to go get help and then can't find anybody at the ranger's shack, so she comes back and he's gone. And then all of a sudden he like falls out of a tree. He's hanging upside down and he's all cut to shreds. She screams, starts running, and then a very interesting trap. She trips a wire, and all of these things. This movie really reminds me of Predator. Okay? Really, the atmosphere of this movie is so Predator. I don't think I've ever seen another movie, aside from Predator movies, that was like the original Predator, except for this movie. But this trap was like these long sticks with 10, like if you open a can of vegetables, those 10 cans, the 10 lids that have been all jagged up by the can opener, they were like tied they were like all over the sticks. And so this girl is running and she trips this wire, and all of these sticks with these 10 can lids just comes out and slices her to pieces. That would be a painful way to go. So that was the intro. Remember I told you that they added more kills to try to get the distributors to release the damn thing. So now we get down to the movie. We have these group. They're rangers. They forest rangers, students, and they go to clean up what forest rangers do. They take care of the woods and the river, and they clean up and bust down any blockages and dams and stuff like that. So you have this group. You have Wendy and Boone and Marco, Mike, Nathaniel, Vanessa, Margaret, and then they are all led by Edgar. Now, Edgar is just an employee that works at the ranger station. He helps maintain the vehicles and stuff. He's a real freak, so he's not a ranger. He's just a employee of the ranger station. So he's going to drive them down to this new area that they're going to go to called Mill Creek. Now, that's not where they were originally supposed to go, and Edgar is not happy. He keeps, bitching the whole time. I don't want you to go there. You shouldn't go there. That's a dangerous place, blah, blah, blah. He's just really overly about not going to Mill Creek. They tell him to fuck off, basically, because Mike is the leader over them all. And he tells him, to fuck up, do his job, take him there and pick him up like he's supposed to. So they go, and they arrive and begin, cleaning the river, doing the job that they're supposed to do. Now, that night as they're camping, Boone tells them a story about a crazy lady in the woods. And basically the story was that this woman had gotten raped and pregnant, and it drove her crazy. And so they took the baby, gave it up for adoption. And then the baby showed back up 19 years later at this institution to see what it had found out was his mother. And then it helped her escape and brought her out to the woods and turned her loose. And, that's the urban legend. Well, not urban because it's not an urban environment, but whatever, a myth of these woods. That's the scary story, that campfire story that Boone tells them. Now, Nathaniel, heretofore Nat and Dennis, they go and trick Marco into thinking that they're going to go and steal weed and from local weed growers out in the boonies. And it's actually just a joke to them, and that is that they want him to howl like a wolf every few minutes, and if he stops howling, that they'll know somebody's around. And it was all just to get him to make a fool of himself. Now, so they go back to camp and leave him out there howling like an idiot. And that's when the next morning when they wake up and Marco is nowhere to be found. So, and we of course are seeing this creeper. We're seeing that, I call it the terror. We're seeing the terror, like peeking out behind bushes, stalking them, things like that. So the next morning, of course, they can't find Marco. This upsets them. They all kind of split up and they're going in different directions looking for them. Dennis and Nat find a cabin. They go off together looking for Marco. They find this cabin like something out of Deliverance. And in it, there's all this weird shit. And one of the things that they find in it is Edgar's hat, his ranger hat. This leads them to believe that this is Edgar's cabin, and everybody thinks Edgar's a weirdo anyway. So they don't know what he's up to out there. But they still can't find Marco. They end up going back. Now, that night when they're asleep, Margaret screams because we see the terror come out of the woods, and it's like rubs her hair while she's asleep, and she wakes up to this grotesque shadow thing. She screams, everybody comes, they're all wondering what the fuck. And just prior to that, Mike and Melanie, they were making out at a waterfall, and during the middle of sex, Mike is brutally cut all to pieces. That's a very good scene, because what a time to be interrupted, right? Especially with a bunch of like machete knife things through your back. That's not going to be. So talk about two different sensations at the same time, right? So now Mike and Melanie and Marco are all gone, so they're all freaked out. And just about the time they start to get super freaked after Margaret had gotten touched by this thing, Marco shows up. Turns out he figured out the joke and had went off on his own and had brought back a bunch of weed. And, haha. And then that's when he's told that Mike and Melanie are not, they can't find them either. Now, Vanessa, she gets really upset, and she's like bitching them out. How are we going to get out of here? What are we going to do? Where the fuck are Melanie and Mike and all of this kind of stuff? and she decides to go to the outhouse. Now, when she goes to the outhouse, she gets more of a surprise than it just being a smelly woods outhouse, because Mike's disturbingly cut up body is in there. This makes everyone come running. They are like, okay, you know what? Shit's gotten really real. We are in, some big trouble. So they start trying to formulate, okay, it's fucking 40 miles. And they're all blaming Edgar, right? So, 35 miles, 40 miles is well, but we can go down the river and it's only 6 to get to the ocean. So they decide that that's what they're going to do after they check out that cabin again. So they all go back to that cabin where we see Melanie is still alive, but she's under the floorboards being held by the terror, and that's what she ends up, they end up leaving. And they're sorry, they can't do anything about it. They need to get to the police, they need to get out of there. So they're going to start riding the river like they had intended. They, of course, are all still thinking that it's Edgar, and we see the terror following them on the riverbank from trees to tree, So you really don't know what this thing is. And while they're going down the river, Melanie's cut-up body is thrown out of a tree and lands right in the middle of their raft while they're paddling, So now they get even more freaked out. They actually do take the time to stop and bury her body. They bury her and then get back onto the river. As they're going, they see a bridge. And on that bridge is the bus that brought them there. So they think Edgar's there. So they wait till night, and then they go and they get on the bus, and then they're like, we'll try to figure out how to start it tomorrow. Or in the meantime, wait till dawn, and we'll try to start it tomorrow. And hopefully we can get the fuck out of here. They, of course, start getting attacked by the terror. Axe through the window, a big spear, very jungle-like, you know what I mean? And they're running. They jump out in the middle of the night. They're running. Right, they were going to stay there till sunrise. They run. While they're going through these trails trying to figure their way, the terror jumps out and puts this big slash down Wendy, tries to cut her throat. That's Daryl Hannah's character. Tries to put this big, and ends up slashing her very bad. I think Nathaniel and Dennis go back to the bus and get first aid kit. And then Margaret ends up sewing her up and everything, so everything's alright. So they don't really know what to do now that all of this has happened, except, and this is where it really went Predator, and that is, it so reminded me of all the traps that Arnold Schwarzenegger tried to set in Predator. He set all those traps. So they decide that what they're going to do is they're going to go down into the ravine, and they want to draw this thing, which they believe is Edgar. They want to draw Edgar down there to them, where they have set up these traps. And one of these traps was, and I swear, didn't Arnold Schwarzenegger do this in a similar trap? But it's a big giant tree log on ropes, and there's giant spikes sticking out of the ropes. It's put way up there. When somebody comes across this fallen gigantic giant redwood tree, which is like a bridge, when someone comes across it, they click the wire, that thing's going to come down and get them. So that is the trap that they want to lure Edgar down onto the bridge. His name is Eggar, and do you know how hard it is not to call that Edgar? Edgar. Okay. So they want to lure Edgar down there. So once they have everything ready, Marco is out there in the middle. It's like, okay, we've got everything ready. Okay. So Edgar gets out there on the log on the tree bridge, and just starts calling for him, and Edgar does show up and attack him and like is trying to choke him. And so you're like, maybe that was Edgar, right? And Dennis, he's like standing over here and he's watching, standing above it, and he's watching Edgar and Marco fight. They fall off, and then everybody comes out. Boone and Wendy and Margaret and everything. They all come out, and they're like beating him and bashing him and all of that. And we then see a back shot of Dennis, who is standing there looking down at all of it. And right back there underneath, we see the terror. And it's like, well, it's damn sure not Edgar, is it? So when he was choking Marco, he was like yelling at Marco. He was yelling, "What did you fucking come here for? Why did you come here? I told you not to come here. Now they're going to take her away." So while he's standing there, the terror moves up behind him, and her weapon is like this big thing attached right here, and it's a big giant bladed sickle looking thing, like a sling blade or a Kaiser blade. So we have that, and it looks like that, and she wields that motherfucker good. So she reaches up there underneath his leg and just like sort of cuts his just cuts his, I don't think she cut his foot off, but it damn sure had to be close right through his Achilles heel. Then he falls down onto this log and is killed in a very ugly way. And they all heard him scream when he fell. And they look over there at the end of the tree because they're down here beating the shit out of Edgar. And here comes the terror. And it's walking across. And it's like screaming. And now you can see it. And it's like this scarred, wicked, barbarian-looking woman. Now you know the answer. That's Edgar's mom. That story that Boone told, that campfire legend from the area campfire legend, that shit was true. That's Edgar's mom. That was her cabin. And he's been keeping his crazy, psychotic mom out in the woods for all these years, to the point where it's become a legend. Rural legend. There you go. And so she gets about halfway across the thing, and she trips that wire. And that thing comes down and just like impels her on all of those spikes. And it sort of swings back and forth. You see Edgar down there. He's still alive, but he's like half beat to death. And you see the survivors. And that's then the music plays and the credits start to roll. And so they all live through it. So yeah, this is a very I love this movie. I love the atmosphere of this movie. If you've never seen this movie, you will just be amazed at the jungle-like atmosphere that is so. I think that the jungle atmosphere in this is, even though it's a like backwoods America, I think it's like better than Predator's atmosphere, and that's pretty good. and yet the atmosphere in this movie is the most beautiful cinematography. So you have that. Now, I think it's really neat to get to see pretty much one of Daryl Hannah's first roles, the Smith guy, his first role, because I knew him. Before I saw this, I only knew him from North and South. I didn't know that. To see the guy, the dad from the Twisted Sister videos, that's really cool. And he's the one in the naked, him and her waterfall scene where he gets cut up. That's him, the dad from the Twisted Sister videos. Rachel Ward, Daryl Hannah looks so cool in this. I love her hair in this. It's like half cornrowed and half not. It's like cornrowed here. But, yeah. So, I absolutely love this movie. I think that it's phenomenal. It's a little different, I think it's pretty unique, and I think that's what makes it special. So, yeah. Final Terror. You have the DVD and the Blu-ray. This is a Scream Factory release. And if you haven't seen it, you really should. And thank you very, very, very much for joining me on day 4 of Slasher Fest. And I will see you in the next one. I love my slasher movies, and believe me, trust me, there will be a lot of them. I just like doing these little themes, and then I go and I sit down in front of my 2,000 plus collection and have to choose 7. I don't have to, but I want to. That way we can jump, it's like not get bored with the same theme, I like that. So there's an awful lot to choose from. Hey, choose 7 slashers. What? Really? Yeah. And this is the 7 that I chose to start for this week. So I'll have fun choosing the next. And love you, miss you, bye. Always remember and never forget you are a very, very, very special person. Even if you're not a park ranger lost in the woods with a psycho woman running around killing everybody. So yes, The Final Terror, 1981. Support indie horror. I demand it. Support indie horror. Support indie filmmakers. Support physical media. And don't be a slave. It's mine. It's all mine. I don't have to depend on your internet connection. I don't have to depend on the company's licensing to jerk it off whatever streaming service I'm paying every month for to have access to a movie. No. It's mine. It's all mine. It belongs to me. I can watch it whenever I want to. Isn't that cool? It can sit there on the shelf for 10 years before I decide to watch it again. And it's still right there whenever I want to. And they can't come and take the license away from me to have it. But you'll pay $15 a month times 6 for a bunch of streaming services to watch shit when they tell you you can. Dum-de-dum-dum. And that's all, folks. I'll see you in the next one. Love you, miss you. Bye-bye. Keep rocking very hard.